So let's start with our 2D icon mode, right? So what is the 2D icon mode? What is new is just the ability for you to replace the icons that you have on your view. So items on your view with a 2D icon, and also for linear resources, you will be able to replace them by a line that you can assign, like define what is the setting of like spacing and thickness of the line, color, stuff like that. So the idea is to be able to highlight elements that you have in your screen that are sometimes harder to see because they are like in the real scale, but when you take a picture from like too far away, like you cannot see a person, you cannot see a stop sign or things like that. The fences, for example, also are like a super thin element, and then when you flip it to the 2D view, you might not be able to see that sometimes. Also to be able to create like some drawing like features, right? So you kind of like start to represent these elements with like as they are in a drawing. And for premium only customers, we have the ability to import custom icons as well, right? So the linear resources, they're going to be available next week, right? So if you try to use it today, you won't be able to see that, but next week you'll see that going on. And just a note that I'm going to show right now is that the default library of icons that we have will only apply to resources that you place from now on. So for the old resources, you need to either replace them with the new version of the resource from the library, or you need to apply the icon yourself. So let's see how this tool works, right? So over here in our view, let me just close this guy because it gives me the heebie-jeebies that it's over there in the bottom. So let's open this scenario. And just so everybody knows, from now on, I'm gonna start using our new layout for these workshops, right? So this is something that we are flipping very soon, right? So the idea that like the buttons were before over here in the bottom. So for people that are joining right now that are not using the new layout yet, so you can already change that on your own by going over here in the user settings and turning on like the toolbar over here for reference. And like the idea is that you start to get like familiar with the new layout where basically all the commands are over here in the left hand side. Okay, so
Just a note here
let's,
that what you were seeing in Pedro's UI is different than what you will see. Pedro's default is now the new UI. Um, for all other users, you'll see the feature flag. If you turn it on, you'll get the new UI. And then from
exactly.
next week, this will be reversed for all users. So from next week, by default, all users will have the new UI, and then you can turn on the old UI as well for reference.
There you go. Exactamundo. Okay, so let's start with understanding our 2D layout, right? So one now, where is that feature? So this feature, the new feature, is over here on the shortcut. So you can apply the 2D icon mode, which basically what it does is that you can apply this view both on the 3D view or on the 2D view as well, right? So for example, let's say that I have like a contaminated soil location over here, and I have this marker that I want to show a different icon when I go into 2D view. So this marker, I can go into this 2D mode visuals, like all the resources now will have this little command where in here you can decide to turn on or off show as icon when in 2D mode. So what this do is that I can now select a custom icon. So just for this resource, basically, I don't have like an icon in the library that show it, but I can add custom icons if I am a premium subscriber. And then you see that nothing changes over here, but if I turn this on in my 3D view, this will apply that icon in that it will replace that object by this icon, right? So you can choose to make it smaller, make it bigger, and it will always align with your view. So this is turned on the 3D mode, but the main use case for this object is when you go into 2D, it automatically already applies this, but you can turn it off if you want to. But it's just for you to create this kind of like drawing like figure of your view where like elements that are hard to see will be replaced by an icon, right? So let's do this from scratch. if I go now into this view over here, I can apply a street flagger. For example, if I go into resources and I find over here flagger, I can put this street flagger from my library into this location, right, to show that I'm going to be using this guy over there. And if I rotate this view, this guy, just to position it in the right like orientation. So in the 2D mode visuals, when I turn this on, I have to turn it on for the resources that I want to show that. It won't be turned on by default. And for a bunch of different resources in our library, you're already going to see a system defaults icon over here. So if there's an object that you want to see an icon that is not over there yet, you can request that by going into the the resource request over here, and then just like let us know which resource you want to ask an icon for. Okay. So basically now this one already has this icon from the library. So when I turn on my 2D view, like now that object looks somewhat like that. Okay. So for objects that are you already placed in, you already have it in your scenario, that already, if I, that might not have, oh, sorry, let me restart that. So for example, this fire hydrant, I placed this fire hydrant before this feature was available. So now when I go into 2D mode visuals over here and turn it on, like I won't be able to see that library of objects of icons for this object, right? Because this was done, this resource was placed before I actually this feature was available. But now if I place in the same object over there, hydrant, right? So if I place the same object from my library in here, you see that now this object, the new one, will have that option on the 2D view because it's assessing our new library, right? So like the new versions of these objects, right? So basically, if it's something that you want to apply for the resource that you already have there, you simply need to go in here and select the resource that you already have, click on the swap function, and then just select the same resource from the library. It will replace it by the same resource, but now this new version will come with the 2D icon, basically. Cool. So just one thing for you guys to make sure that you know that you can find these if like it's an object array place, and also if there's no icon in there, you can ask for us to add this to the library. Okay. So this, now you can compare the 3D view to the 2D view over here. So like these objects are now replaced by 3D lines. And if I turn this off, you see like that the icon that I can barely see where they are, but if I turn this on, I can identify where these elements are. Okay. And for 2D objects, let's say, oh, sorry, linear objects, let's do like a new fence over here in this corner. So if I go into my fence category and select, let's say this guy over here. So for all linear resources, next week, this will be available. Basically, when you do that and you confirm this, like again, if I change this view to 2D, I won't be able to see that fence that much because it's like a thin line. But if I go into the fence object, and going to 2D mode visuals, I can turn this on to show as a line when in 2D mode. So this will give me the controls of like replacing this fence panel, these fence lines with a 3D line, basically. So I can put like a thickness in here. I can define like color and so on. So now when I am in 2D mode, in like you see that the 3D, this is how the fence looks like. And when I go in 2D, it looks like this. Okay, because that's what I placed in my 2D presentation visuals over there. Sorry, let me click on this again. So my 2D presentation visuals. Cool. Any questions? I saw someone put in a question over there on the chat. What was it about? Oh, you guys already answered?
Yeah, Ben asked the question, which we already answered. One thing I would add here is that for some of the resources, it will be the 2D mode visuals will be on by default, and then for some of them it won't be. So as an example, for say a stop sign, you're not going to have, looking at it from the top view, a plan view, you're not going to be able to clearly see it. So for that, it will be by default on. For a crane, we're going to have, for, a lot of the cranes, we're going to have also a 2D symbol, but that is not going to be the default option because most people were going to want to see the actual profile of the crane to see, for example, the coverage. So that's the reason that it won't be on by default for some of the resources, and it will be for others.
Yep, there you go. So for example, this is the new one that I placed right now. So you see by default it's already turned on. I didn't need to turn everything on, but there was a stop sign here before, and that one is not being replaced, right? So there you go. Cool. And oh, by the way, you can also apply the same movement and like objects of like rotation and things like that with the 2D icon mode turned on. So it will give you like more power for you to put these legends and things like that. Okay, so this is our new 2D icon mode.